But moving on to the next story on this edition of the Rock News Roundup podcast, this coming courtesy of Loudwire. Black Sabbath go out with a bang for their final shows at the Back to the Beginning concert that they held at Villa Park in their hometown of Birmingham, England, this past weekend. Talk about a big weekend for British rock fans. They had Oasis getting back together in Cardiff on Friday and Saturday night, and then back to the beginning, the Black Sabbath final show with a roster of incredible blockbuster guests on this thing. Absolutely incredible. That was a crazy weekend for British rock fans all across the country. So, yeah, Black Sabbath's classic lineup: Ozzy Osbourne, Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward got back together for the Back to the Beginning concert. And I'll kind of get into some of the highlights of that show in just a couple of seconds. But obviously, this was a huge thing for Black Sabbath fans, for metal fans, and like talk about a lineup for this thing as well. Like they really did not leave anybody out when it came to this event. Like that: Mastodon, Anthrax, Halestorm, Lamb of God, Gojira, Slayer, Rival Sons, Alice in Chains, Sammy Hagar, Steven Tyler, Tool, Guns N' Roses, and Metallica going on stage before Black Sabbath. So it was, the band Black Sabbath. Ozzy does solo set, and the event was actually broadcast live online on video on demand. So you could actually purchase this concert and watch it online, which was not the same case with Oasis and their reunion shows, because a lot of us were just like looking for live streams on YouTube or TikTok or wherever we could find it. But overall, this looked like a great day of celebration of Black Sabbath, of British metal, and of course their influence on the world of rock music, which is like immeasurable. Black Sabbath is one of those names, kind of like the Big Four. When I think about the Big Four of rock in the late 60s into the early 70s, you had, of course, Led Zeppelin, you had Pink Floyd, Black Sabbath, and Deep Purple. Like those four bands I really think brought on the age of hard rock and the age of metal in the late 60s and the early 70s. And Black Sabbath are not necessarily like my go-to band. They're not one of the bands that I listen to the most, but I do love Black Sabbath. I do have a lot of respect and love for that band. And really, I think this was a great way to go out, even though this is the second time they've done a final show. The other one was the beginning of the end that they did in 2017, but original drummer Bill Ward was not part of that reunion. So this really was like the send off for Black Sabbath and their legacy in rock music. And so again, I didn't buy the stream myself, but a lot of clips were posted on YouTube over the weekend, so I had a chance to catch up on quite a few of the performances for this the Back to the Beginning concert. And so just kind of some highlights for me: Rival Sons, who are one of my favorite current rock bands on the planet. They were there. They did one of their songs, "Do Your Worst," as well as a Black Sabbath song called "Electric Funeral." I love Rival Sons, so it was really cool to see them there. Alice in Chains was there as well, and I really feel like out of all these bands that are on this that were on this bill, like Alice in Chains, in terms of their sound, owes the most to Black Sabbath with their drony guitar riffs, the down-tuned guitars, those really heavy, chuggy, drony guitars. I feel like they owe a lot to Black Sabbath, to Tony Iommi and his guitar sound. So it made sense that Alice in Chains would be there for this concert. So they played a lot of their songs. They played Man in the Box, they played Wood, and then they played a Black Sabbath song called Fairies Wear Boots. So it's really cool. Every band that was on this bill played a couple of their own songs. They paid tribute to Ozzy and Black Sabbath. So it was nice to see there was a nice mix of musicians and songs in there. So actually, Supergroup B, there was a couple of different supergroups that were assembled for this show, but specifically Supergroup B, as I've seen them referenced to on a lot of these set lists. That was a pretty heavy lineup. You had Tom Morello in there from Rage Against the Machine leading a lot of that stuff. They had Billy Corgan on stage there to sing "Breaking the Law," which is the Judas Priest song. Sammy Hagar came on and played one of my favorite Ozzy Osbourne solo songs, "Flying High Again," which was one of my like favorite Ozzy songs to spin when I was on FM radio. Papa V Perpetua of Ghost came on to sing "Bark at the Moon," another really great Ozzy solo track. And then who would have thought Steven Tyler of Aerosmith was there for the proceedings on Saturday? And there's been a lot of talk over the last couple of years of the vocal injuries that Steven Tyler sustained, and how Aerosmith wasn't able to go on the road anymore because of it. But Steven Tyler evidently is some rest and some rejuvenation has brought him back to the stage, and he sounded absolutely fantastic at this show. He sang some Aerosmith. He sang "Walk This Way." He sang "Train Kept a Rollin'," which is a great Aerosmith cover as well. And then he sang "A Whole Lot of Love." So they had a little bit of Led Zeppelin in there, and he sounded fantastic. So for a lot of us who are hardcore, like old school Aerosmith fans like myself, it was really great to see Steven Tyler up there doing his thing. Tool was there, which I thought, again, like kind of like Alice in Chains. I feel like Tool is one of those bands that really is indebted to Black Sabbath with their sound. So Tool did 46 and 2, as well as Enema, which are their tunes. And then they did Hand of Doom, which is a Black Sabbath song. Guns N' Roses was there. They sang Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. They sang one of their own tunes, Welcome to the Jungle. And then they sang some other songs as well. And then Metallica was the band that went on stage right before Ozzy and right before Black Sabbath. They played like a 6-song set, which was a mix of Metallica and a mix of Black Sabbath. They played Hole in the Sky, which is a Sabbath tune. They played For Whom the Bell Tolls, Master of Puppets. And, James Hetfield was on stage saying, like, without Black Sabbath, there would be no Metallica. And we really, like I said, those big four bands, Sabbath, Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, and Deep Purple, they really like set the tone for a lot of those bands in the 90s that we really love. We love these heavy bands from the 90s and the 80s, whether it be Metallica or Tool or Alice in Chains, but really they are indebted to Black Sabbath for a lot of their sound and a lot of their influence. And then after that, Ozzy Osbourne went on stage. I know he's been experiencing a lot of health issues over the last couple of years, but he sounded fantastic. Ozzy sounded absolutely great. He came out and he sang "I Don't Know." He sang "Mr. Crowley," "Mama, I'm Coming Home," and "Crazy Train." So that must have been amazing for the fans in attendance at Villa Park in Birmingham. Before the big guns came on, Black Sabbath reunited all 4 original members with War Pigs, NIB, Iron Man, and Paranoid. So you get 4 of the best Black Sabbath tracks to close out the show. And I can only imagine what it was like for fans who were there and even fans who were watching online, what it was like to see all of this happen, because really, like, it's such a day-long thing of tribute to Ozzy Osbourne, tribute to Black Sabbath, all these bands and artists that there are kind of their contemporaries, and then bands that were influenced by them. And that was just really, really cool to see. And I think this is probably the end of the line for Black Sabbath. Like, I think that this is probably it, but I could be wrong. They could do it again, but I feel like this really is the last kick at the can for Black Sabbath. But what a way to go. The Back to the Beginning festival, it was more of a festival than a concert. It was a day-long thing for all those fans in their hometown of Birmingham, England, with all of those bands that were so influenced by Black Sabbath. And like I said, those big bands from the 60s and 70s, they influenced the bands from the 90s, which then influences everybody after that. So really the legacy of Black Sabbath is well intact, and this looks like an awesome way to send them off. But let me know in the comments below, were you at the show? Did you watch the online stream? What were your favorite performances from the Back to the Beginning concert in Birmingham, England, to send off Black Sabbath? Was it Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Tool? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.